a lovely day? Do you remember who we're going to meet tonight in our story? That's right, the Oompa Loompas. Oompa Loompas, everyone said at once. Oompa Loompas? Imported directly from Loompa Land, said Mr. Wonka proudly. There's no such place, said Mrs. Salt. Excuse me, dear lady, but Mr. Wonka, said Mrs. Salt, I'm a teacher of geography. Then you'll know all about it. What a terrible country it is. Thick jungles with dangerous beasts, and hornswogglers and snozwangers, and those terrible wicked wangdoodles. A wangdoodle could eat 10 Oompa Loompas for breakfast and then have a second helping. When I went there, I found the little Oompa Loompas living in tree houses. They had to live in tree houses to escape from the wangdoodles and the hornswogglers and the snozwangers. And when they were living on green caterpillars and the caterpillars tasted revolting, and the Oompa Loompas spent every moment of their days climbing through the treetops, looking for other things to mash up with the caterpillars to make them taste better. Red beetles and bark of the bong-bong trees. Poor little Oompa Loompas. The one food that they longed for more than anything was the cocoa bean. But they couldn't get it. And Oompa Loompa was lucky if he found 3 or 4 cocoa beans a year. But oh, how they loved them. They used to dream about cocoa beans all night and talk about them all day. You only had to say cocoa to an Oompa Loompa and he would start dribbling at the mouth. The cocoa bean, which grows on the cocoa tree, happens to be the thing from which all chocolate is made. You can't make chocolate without a cocoa bean. And so, my dear children, I discovered that the Oompa Loompas were crazy about this food. I climbed up to the treehouse village and poked my head in through the door and found the leader of the tribe. Look here, I said, speaking not in English, of course, but in Oompa Loompish. Look here, if all your people will come back to my country and live in my factory, you can have all the cocoa beans you want. You can gorge yourself silly on them. I'll even pay your wages in cocoa beans. You mean it, said the leader. Of course I mean it, and you can have chocolate as well. The man gave a great whoop of joy and threw his bowl of mashed caterpillars right out the treehouse window. It's a deal, come on, let's go. And so I shipped them all over here. Every man, woman and child in Oompa Loompa tribe. It was easy. I smuggled them over in large packing cases with holes in them, and they got here safely. Daddy! Shouted Veruca Salt, the girl who got everything she wanted. Daddy, I want an Oompa Loompa. I want you to get me an Oompa Loompa. I want an Oompa Loompa right away. I want to take it home with me. Go on, Daddy, get me an Oompa Loompa. Now, my pet, her father said to her. We mustn't interrupt, Mr. Wonka. But I want an Oompa Loompa, screamed Veruca. All right, Veruca, all right. But I can't get it for you this second. Please be patient. I'll see you have one before the day is out. Augustus? Shouted Mrs. Gloop. Augustus, sweetheart, I don't think you better do that. Augustus Gloop, as you might have guessed, had quietly sneaked down to the edge of the river and was now kneeling on the riverbank, scooping hot, melted chocolate into his mouth as fast as he could. When Mr. Wonka turned around and saw what Augustus was doing, he cried out, "Oh no, please, Augustus, please! My chocolate mustn't be touched by human hands!" Augustus, didn't you hear what the man said? Come away from that river. This stuff is fabulous, said Augustus. I need a bucket to drink it properly. Augustus, said Mr. Wonka, you're dirtying my chocolate. Augustus, cried Mrs. Gloop. Augustus, cried Mr. Gloop. But Augustus was deaf to everything except his stomach. He was now lapping up the chocolate like a dog. Augustus, you'll be giving that nasty cold of yours to millions of people all over the country. Be careful, Augustus, said Mr. Gloop. You're leaning out too far. Mr. Gloop was right, for suddenly there was a shriek, and into the river splashed Augustus Gloop and disappeared underneath the brown surface. Save him, he'll drown, he can't swim, shouted his mother. Good heavens, woman, I'm not diving on there, I've got my best suit on, said his father. Help, help, help! Don't just stand there, Mr. Gloop screamed at Mrs. Gloop. Do something! I am doing something. But while he was doing this, the wretched boy was being sucked closer and closer to the mouth of one of the great pipes. There he goes, somebody shouted, pointing upwards. And sure enough, because the pipe was made of glass, Augustus Gloop could be seen shooting up inside, head first like a torpedo. "Help! Murder! Police! Augustus, come back here! Where are you going?" It's a wonder to me how that pipe is big enough for him to go through it. "It isn't big enough," said Charlie. "He's slowing down." "So he is," said Grandpa Joe. "He's going to stick," said Charlie. "I think he is," said Grandpa Joe. "By golly, he's stuck," said Charlie. "It's his stomach that did it," said Grandpa Joe. "Smash the pipe!" yelled Mrs. Gloop. "Augustus, come out of there at once." The watchers below could see the chocolate swishing around the boy in the pipe, and they could see it building up behind him in a solid mass, pushing against the blockage. The pressure was terrific. Something had to give. Woof! Augustus shot up like a bullet in the barrel of a gun. "He's gone! Quick, call the fire brigade!" "Keep calm," said Mr. Wonka. "There's no danger. Augustus has gone on a journey. A little interesting journey, but he'll come out. You wait and see." "He'll be made into marshmallows in 5 seconds," said Mrs. Gloop. "Impossible! He could never be made in marshmallows." "And why not, may I ask?" shouted Mrs. Gloop. "Because the pipe doesn't go anywhere near it. That pipe makes the most delicious kind of strawberry-flavoured chocolate-coated fudge." "Then he'll be made into strawberry-flavoured chocolate-coated fudge. My poor Augustus, they'll be selling him by the pound all over the country tomorrow." "Quite right," said Mr. Gloop. "Mr. Wonka doesn't seem to think this is not a joke. Just look at him, he's laughing his head off. How dare you laugh like that when my boy's just gone up the pipe, you monster! You think that sucking my boy into your fudge room is a big joke?" "He'll be safe," said Mr. Wonka, giggling slightly. "He'll be chocolate fudge!" shrieked Mrs. Gloop. "Never," cries Mr. Wonka. "Of course he will." "I wouldn't allow it," said Mr. Wonka. "And why not?" "Because the taste would be terrible," said Mr. Wonka. "Just imagine, Augustus flavoured chocolate-coated Gloop. No one would buy it." "They most certainly would," said Mr. Gloop. "I don't want to think about it," shrieked Mrs. Gloop. "Nor do I. And I do promise you, madam, that your darling boy is perfectly safe." "If he's perfectly safe, then where is he? Lead me to him this instant." Mr. Wonka turned around and clicked his fingers sharply. Click, 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 3 times. Immediately an Oompa Loompa appeared as from nowhere. The Oompa Loompa bowed and smiled. "Now listen to me. I want you to take Mr. and Mrs. Gloop up to the fudge room and help them find their son Augustus. He's just gone up the pipe." The Oompa Loompa took one look at Mrs. Gloop and exploded into peals of laughter. "Oh, do be quiet. Control yourself. Pull yourself together. Mrs. Gloop doesn't think it's funny," said Mr. Wonka. "You can say that again." "Go straight to the fudge room," Mr. Wonka said. "I'm certain that you'll find him there. My fudge will become quite uneatable if he was in the fudge boiler." "I'm joking," said Mr. Wonka, giggling madly behind his beard. "I didn't mean it. Forgive me, I'm so sorry. Goodbye, Mrs. Gloop. Goodbye, Mr. Gloop. Goodbye, I'll see you later." As Mr. and Mrs. Gloop and their tiny escort hurried away, the 5 Oompa Loompas on the far side of the river suddenly began hopping and dancing about and beating wildly upon a number of very small drums. "Augustus Gloop," they chanted. "Augustus Gloop, Augustus Gloop, Augustus Gloop." "Grandpa," cried Charlie, "listen to them, Grandpa. What are they doing?" "Shh," whispered Grandpa Joe. "I think they're going to sing a song." "Augustus Gloop," chanted the Oompa Loompas. "Augustus Gloop, Augustus Gloop, the great big greedy nincompoop. How long could we allow this beast to gorge and guzzle, feed and feast on everything he wanted to? Great Scott, it simply wouldn't do. However long this pig might live, we're positive he'd never give even the smallest bit of fun or happiness to anyone. So what we do in cases such as this, we use the gentle touch, and carefully we take the brat and turn him into something that will give great pleasure to us all. A doll, for instance, or a ball, or marbles, or a rocking horse. But this revolting boy, of course, was so unutterably vile, so greedy, foul, and infantile. He left a most disgusting taste inside our mouths, and so in haste we chose a thing, come what may, would take the nasty taste away. Come on, we cried, the time is ripe to send him shooting up the pipe. He has to go, it has to be, and very soon he's going to see, inside the room to which he's gone, some funny things are going on. Oh, but don't, dear children, be alarmed. Augustus Gloop will not be harmed. Although, of course, we must admit he will be altered quite a bit. He'll be quite changed from what he's been when he goes through the fudge machine. Slowly the wheels go round and round, the cogs begin to grind and pound. 100 knives go slice, slice, slice. We add some sugar, cream and spice. We boil him for a minute more until we're absolutely sure that all the greed and all the gall is boiled away for once and all. Then out he comes, now by grace a miracle has taken place. This boy, who only just before was loathed by men from shore to shore, this greedy brute, this louse's ear, is loved by people everywhere. For who could hate or bear a grudge against a luscious bit of fudge? I told you they loved singing, said Mr. Wonka. Aren't they delightful? Aren't they charming? But please don't believe a word they say. It's all nonsense. Are the Oompa Loompas really joking, Grandpa? Asked Charlie. Of course they're joking, answered Grandpa Joe. They must be joking. At least I hope they're joking. Don't you? I really hope they're joking. We'll have to see tomorrow if Augustus has become a piece of fudge. I hope you sleep tight, snug as a bug.